Anne Ukrainets, 75, of Escondido, claimed to be the illegitimate daughter of the Mauriceburg Roche. Fourth Baron Foy and grandfather of the late Princess of Wales, the Daily Mail has revealed. Mrs. Ukrainets grew up believing to be the child of timber company foreman Charles Rutherford, but 9 years ago her beliefs crumbled down as she discovered a shocking letter. She said. Following the death of her mother Evelyn in 1995, the grandmother of 7 found a handwritten confession from her mother addressed to her inside an old music program stored among her mother's belongings. The letter read, "My dearest, darling Anne, I know one day you will have this letter in your possession, maybe after I have passed from this world. I just have to get this off my chest. Please try to understand. I fell in love with Lord Foy and we had you as a result. Charlie was not your biological father. There was nothing we could do. He was married and I was just a commoner. We stayed in close touch and he loved you very much." The shocking letter was stored together with a series of love notes, all addressed to my Rose, my love, my Evelyn, and signed MF, which sparked the belief she is Princess Diana's long-lost aunt. But the only way to prove this is digging up the remains of Maurice's twin brother Francis, who is buried in New York, and compare his DNA with hers. Speaking to Daily Mail TV, Mrs. Ukrainets said, "Ultimately, this will give me the answers I've been looking for over 20 years now. Can you imagine? 20 years trying to fight this battle of who I am? It just blows my mind. It absolutely blows me away." However, her hopes have so far been dashed by the lack of responsiveness of Diana's relatives. Mrs. Ukrainets said she has tried to contact the Foy family, Princess Diana's brother Charles, Earl Spencer and the Dukes of Cambridge and Sussex, but they have all largely ignored. "Why can't they accept me? They accept me, Han, who is a divorcee," she said. "I am their flesh and blood. The royals have come a long way in that they have accepted others. Yet myself, who is blood-related, they want nothing to do with. It makes me angry." Mrs. Ukrainets is originally from England, and was born Anne Rutherford on November 22, 1943 from Evelyn, who was already married to Mr. Rutherford. The Californian believes Maurice, also married, first saw her mother, who was an actress at the King's Lynn's Theatre Company, during the 1940s. She believes they soon became the protagonists of a whirlwind illicit romance that lasted until Maurice's death in 1955. During her childhood, the 75-year-old remembers receiving regular visits on Fridays from the insurance man, who she says she has now realized was Maurice. She explained, "He was introduced to me as the insurance man and he would come quite often on a Friday and we would have to get all dolled up. My grandmother would take a walk because she lived with my mum and dad. She was bombed out during the war, and I would sit on his knee. I thought that was a little strange when I got older. Why am I bouncing around on this man's lap when he's the insurance man? But it seemed that my mum and he had a very close relationship and so I felt it was okay. I remember he bought me a bicycle for my birthday. He would always bring some little toy. I think it was blue, a blue Raleigh bicycle. I just loved it." Mrs. Ukrainets' conviction Maurice is her father are fueled also by the fact that her family has always had money beside being of modest means, because she believes they were receiving funds from her biological wealthy father. One of the love letters she found describes how Maurice would regularly send them £200 to help pay for Mrs. Ukrainets' singing and dancing lessons. Evelyn and her husband moved to Canada the same year Maurice died, and from there Mrs. Ukrainets moved to the U.S. after her marriage, in 1964.